It's as natural as life itself, and yet we fear it. But what if I told you that there was a world where dying could be fun? I'm talking, of course, about video games. In video games, death can be a social experience. Death can be a learning experience. Death can be a good experience. So don't fear the Reaper. Please enjoy Polygon's top 5 games for people who will eventually die. Destiny 2 feels good in a lot of ways. The shooting is perfect. Lining up shots and watching those yellow numbers come flying off of a target is so satisfying. It's like popping bubble wrap. And, scooping up engrams from the battlefield and leveling your character up really scratches that loot grind itch. But the best thing that Destiny 2 doesn't have a lot to do with its mechanics. It has to do with the community and the excitement that was built up around the game. Everybody was playing it. It was really refreshing to be able to just hop onto my PS4 and know that I was going to have somebody to play with. Most of my time in Destiny was spent catching up with old friends or getting closer with new ones while just sort of grinding away at the game's daily activities. But I also had more intense experiences, namely the raid. Succeeding at the raid in Destiny requires constant, organized communication between you and your team of 5 other players. Even with an experienced guide taking us through the raid, we still died over and over and over again. But every time we died, we would learn something new about the raid's weird rule set, and we would come back smarter. Bringing down the Emperor in Destiny 2 is definitely one of my most satisfying game experiences of this year, and it was only possible because the game brought together so many people to fight and die, surrounded by friends.
All right.
The first time I was playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I was running from this group of moblins on horseback, and I ended up near a cliff. A bat flew over and electrocuted me, and Link just tumbled off this horse and ragdolled down the ravine to his death, and I laughed really hard. On its face, Zelda has always been about fighting monsters in dangerous locales and booby traps, but a Zelda game has never been this dedicated to killing you over and over and over again and showing you the results of your failure. It really felt like Nintendo was slaughtering a sacred calf by showing their iconic hero Link just flopping down this hill like an idiot. But that change in philosophy is really core to what the Breath of the Wild is all about. Nintendo made this huge open world full of overlapping AIs and systems and physics, and refuses to fudge the results to make your experience smoother. Some of my favorite moments in the Breath of the Wild were moments where all of those systems coalesced to kill me in some unpredictable way. I was killed by lightning because I didn't put my sword away in a thunderstorm. I was blown up by an explosive barrel that was set on fire by a wildfire I had started minutes earlier somewhere else, and I was crushed to death by a giant metal door that I was manipulating trying to solve a puzzle. This is a fundamental shift for a franchise that's really known for sort of holding your hand and drip-feeding you new tools and weapons over the course of a game. Breath of the Wild sets you loose in its world with everything you need to succeed, fail, or die a horrible death. And that's why it's one of the best games of the year.
Welcome to the family, son.
Resident Evil 7 is one of the few games this year that really made me afraid to die, because it creates this sense of lingering terror. A lot of games will pitch you against hordes of really grotesque enemies, but there's something about being stuck in a strange house with one very angry man that is really palpable. The thing that makes death scary in Resident Evil 7 is the fact that it comes at you slowly, and it comes at you from weird angles, and when it catches you, it's really gross. And while the game eventually introduces some more disposable enemies, I spent most of my time being hunted by the Baker family. Each member of the family will stalk you really persistently through their private domain, so by the end of the game, I really felt like I got to know the people who wanted to mutilate me, and that was really scary.
I told you to stay out of here!
Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, kicks off right where the New Order ended, so BJ is just fucked up beyond repair, but he fights on for the first half of the game with his body just sort of jammed into this mechanical exoskeleton. And then he dies. Sort of. The game shows you everything. The decapitation, the incineration of your protagonist, and then it rewinds, and it takes the tiniest ember of hope that BJ Blazkowicz might still be alive, and fans that ember into this raging inferno of weirdness that does not let up until the game ends. With his head attached to this robotic super soldier body, BJ rides through the streets of New Orleans on the back of a giant robot dog that breathes fire. You go to Venus to audition for the role of yourself in the movie being made about his life. You will execute a Nazi general on live TV. I would play Wolfenstein 2 late into the night and wake up the next morning completely convinced that the stuff that I had seen the night before was just a dream, but it wasn't. It all happens in the game. BJ's death is the moment that Machine Games gives themselves permission to go completely off the rails with the Wolfenstein franchise. I love its absurdity, its obscenely dark comedy, and its genuine love that it has for its protagonists. It's a game that I'll be thinking about for a long time.
Nazis think you're dead, baby. They ain't never gonna see you coming.
I never quite realized how beautiful this world is.
NIER Automata is a game about robots learning what it means to be alive, and I think the game's most powerful moment comes when they confront death, or refuse to. The game has multiple endings, and they're all sad. But in the 11th hour, the game gives you a chance to change the ending. The last gameplay segment transforms NIER into a post-modern bullet hell shooter, as you figuratively destroy the dev team in an attempt to change the fate of the androids. And it's impossible to beat on your own. But the game offers you help. And without spoiling much more, it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a video game. The Deus Ex Machina that pulls you through this impossible bullet hell shooter isn't just a plot contrivance. It exists because dozens, maybe hundreds of other people, real players, sacrificed a lot so that you could have a happy ending. It's a moment that could only be created in a video game, and I kept thinking about it for a long time after I walked away from the game. Defying death and changing the ending in NIER Automata is one of the most memorable video game experiences I had in 2017, or maybe ever, and that is why it is my game of the year. Bye.